Hi there, and welcome back to Hillbilly Storytime Pentest Fails with me, Adam Compton. Today we're going to take a slight detour. Instead of talking about issues or failures from the pentester's perspective, or that they caused or might have participated in, this is going to be ones that are initiated by the customer themselves. This can be done through whether it's negligence or maliciousness on their part. The end result is that it makes the job at the pen tester that much harder and possibly more prone to having issues or mistakes from the customer's perspective. These usually come in the form of one of three areas. One is just scoping, some issues in there. One is with just overall restrictions. And the final one is just some maliciousness on the customer's part. So let's go ahead and get started with some of the scoping ones here. In particular, there's one that most of this falls into, and that's from the form of you're doing, whether it's an internal or an external, on-site, whatever, and the customer comes up and says, all right, here's our scope, and you're looking at it like, okay, it says here that you have 1,000 hosts that you want us to target. They're like, yes, 1,000 hosts, that'd be great. That's what's signed off on the statement of work, stuff like that. So you're looking at there and you're like, okay, you haven't given us a target list here. Can you give us a target list to go after that these 1,000 would be in? They're like, oh, well, we don't have a list of actual IPs to give you, but we have a range that we can give you. Okay, that's fine. You can give us the range, and we'll take a look at that, and we'll scan through that and find the host in there. So what is the range? Oh, it's 10.0.0.0/8. At this point, the pen tester is going to sit there and either laugh or cringe or whatever their gut reaction is, because the customer just gave them a range of possible about 16 million and some odd hosts that they need to scan to find 1,000 active hosts in. Now, the customer never even said whether there's more than 1,000 active hosts, if there's just 1,000. Maybe there's like 30,000 active hosts and the customer only wants you to target 1,000 of them. Maybe there's only 1,000. Maybe there's not even 1,000. Whatever the scenario is, the customer is giving you a range of, well, a side notation of /8 to target. You go back to them and say, can you sort of narrow that down a little bit to us? Give us a more concise list, possibly just the subnets that they're put on, because I'm imagining you're not putting it on all these different subnets. Can you narrow it down to, I don't know, several /24s, maybe even /23, 22, something like that we can work with? And inevitably the customer comes back and, well, not inevitably. Sometimes they do come back and say, oh yeah, okay, well, we can narrow it down to these, I don't know, 20 /24s that you can scan. Okay, that's more doable. We can work with that. But many times they come back and say, well, we really don't know what systems are out there on what ranges. You're just going to have to scan it for us. Okay, that's fine, given enough time. But if you're going to do, just say, an in-map host discovery out there, depending on what flags you're setting, what your network connection is, you're looking at around about 2 days worth of scanning just to find active host and standard simple ports on there. Not even doing like all ports or UDP, stuff like that. Just a handful of ports across a /8 is potentially going to take quite a while to run. But that's what the customer wanted. Fine. You work with them, try to get that cleaned up, or you break it off into multiple subnets, whatever you have to do to get the job done. It's the pen tester's job to get it done. Yes, the customer is being a little malicious here of sort, or whether they just don't understand the issue. It's just an issue imposed upon, or it's a restriction imposed upon the pen tester by the customer, and these things happen. You got to roll with it and do the best you can. You can push back to some degree. Your sales agent or your sales personnel, your project manager, stuff like that can push back, but at the end of the day, you're contracted to do the job, so you do the job. Next along the line is restrictions. So one of the things I typically ask the customer when we're doing an internal or external, or whatever the scenario is, all right, fine, you've given us the target range now. It's something we can work with. So is there any systems in there that we need to be a little cautious with? Any other restrictions that you want to place in there on us? by default, we say that work needs to be done during a certain set of hours and there's no denial of service attacks. But is there anything else that we need to be aware of? Usually the customer comes back, oh no, that's fine, just try not to bring down any systems and so forth. And we're good with that. But every once in a while we'll have a customer or customers come back and say, actually, yeah, there are a few other things that we need you to be aware of. For this particular engagement, yeah, you can't really, well, we'd prefer that before you execute any exploit, you get our permission first and we talk about it. I mean, that's usually okay, and we usually do that for any of the more critical exploits anyway, but sometimes these customers are picturing things like testing for anonymous FTP as an exploit. So you need to get a little more clear on the definition of what they consider an exploit there. If you're, I don't know, testing for IPMI, whether you're testing for default credentials, many times they view this as an exploit. And before you do anything, you need to clarify what an exploit is in their mind so that you know how to handle this down the road. And yes, if they do consider testing for default credentials, stuff like that, as an exploit, this is going to be a long week. Another one that comes up, not as often, but every once in a while I've had this, and there's a couple come to mind offhand, which I'm not going to say, but is that the customer comes back and says, if before you test anything, you let us know. Well, what do you mean test anything? Well, before you check whether a service is there, you check what version that service is there. Before you check, you try to load the web page, you need to get our permission. Okay, this is getting really weird. For example, I've had a customer come back one time and say, okay, you can do a ping sweep, and once you're done with that, and you have an idea of which systems you want to target next, you let me know. I'm like, well, I want to target all of those. They're like, well, some of these are outside of the range of what we would feel we're comfortable with you scanning additionally. Okay, well, which ones can I? Okay, I'm going to kick off an in-map scan. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We only want you to then scan ports 80 and 21. Okay, so you scan that, like, oh, we found I don't know, half dozen FTP servers out there. We want to check if there's any anonymous FTP. Okay, which ones do you want to test? Well, we want to test all of them. No, we'll let you test these two right here and see if there's anonymous. Stuff like that. Your week becomes very tedious, very monotonous, very just painful if you have a customer like this. And they do exist out there. And there again, I don't know if they're just not sure what's going on. They want to cover their rear ends, if they are just being malicious, whatever the scenario is. These things do happen out there. Then you have the scenarios where they're a little more lenient. They're like, okay, you can do more stuff. You can actually scan the systems. But when it comes to things like passwords, yeah, if you capture a password hash or things like that, we would prefer you not try to crack those. Because any password that you crack, we're going to have to make them change it. Okay. Well, how about things like Mimikatz pulling credentials out of memory? Oh, no, we don't want you to do anything like that. Because there again, any passwords that you see, we're going to have to make them change, and it's such a hassle and headache. But that is part of doing the pen test. Well, no, we understand that and we acknowledge that there's a risk in that. So try to do it without doing anything with passwords. Okay. Or they come back and say things like, as you're doing your scans, as you're checking connectivity, as you're checking exploits, things of that nature, if you come across any customer data, any of our employee data, anything like that, don't look at it. What do you mean don't look at it? Well, if you check, if you gain access to their credentials, don't log into their mail. Don't look at any of their mail. Don't look at any file in their directory. Don't look at anything that you find on a file share, because there might be sensitive data in there. At which point the pen testers think in their head, well, we do have sort of an NDA signed here. You hired us to do this, and now you're telling us we can't really look at anything that we're doing. Well, yeah, that's basically what they're saying. I know personally I like looking through file shares, looking for config files, looking for things that might contain usernames and passwords. Emails are great things to look through for that. But some customers have legitimate reasoning behind this. Many of their employees might be European citizens. There's laws against certain types of who can see what, things of that nature. And some of them are just being super paranoid, and some of them are just possibly being mean. There again, not really a lot you can do about it, but you have to deal with it. You got to roll on. But these are kind of things that I've experienced on the more extreme end of things that a customer can do to the pen tester. All right, well, this video is actually turning into a little longer one than I expected it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it right here, pick up for another video coming out, and then probably a few days later, probably beginning of next week, I'll have the next one up, and we'll resume where we are right here. And as always, hope you had a great time watching this. Hope you don't mind me breaking it up like this. I like to try to keep them a little shorter. So, yeah, hit the like button if you did enjoy it. Please leave a comment below if you have anything to say. And if you want to stay updated, hit the subscribe button. Thank you, and have a great day.